Chapter 1, Lesson 5, Descriptive Modeling and Accuracy. We don't have a homework check because of the quiz we took yesterday, so go ahead and pause and write this down, the title of the lesson. So what is descriptive modeling? And it's the process of creating a mathematic model. Now, some of the models that we'll be using are tables, tally charts, and equations. Those are the most common mathematical models that we use in Algebra 1. Now, when we create these models, then we can find solutions to real-world problems. Question 1. A coach uses a metric to determine the athletes that make varsity, junior varsity A, and junior varsity B. The total number of points on a skills test is 350. Athletes will make varsity with at least 90% of the points. Athletes will make JVA for 70 to 89% of the points. And athletes will make JVB for 50 to 69% of the points. The table shows the number of points for each athlete that tried out. Tell the number of athletes that will make each team. So they already have the table and the tally chart set up for us. So go ahead and pause and put this in your notes. Okay, so now we need to figure out what percentage of the points make varsity and turn that into a number. So in order to make varsity, you need 90%, which we write as 0.90. Then it says the word of, which means to multiply. And then the points, which was 350. So in order to make varsity, we take 0.90 times 350 in our calculator is 315. So anyone who had 315 to 350 points will make varsity. So we'll go through and check anyone 315 to 350. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oops. Good. So we have 12 people that make varsity. Now for JVA, we need anywhere from 70 to 89%. So we're going to take 0.70 times 350. And that gives me 245. And now I don't have to do the 89 times 350 because I know that once they hit 315 points, they're on varsity. So I know that the top end of the range for JVA is 314. So I'm looking for 245 to 314. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now for JVB, I have between 50% to 69, and 50% of 350 is 175, all the way up to 244, because once they make 245, then they make JV. Why can't I see my other colors? I'll just do light blue. Oh, there we go. Then they make JVA. So we're looking for 175 and higher. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 again. Now I have these 4 that I circled that don't fall in my up to 175 range. So I would also say then 4 people do not make a team. Okay. The second type of mathematical we're going to be using is equations. Suppose a mortgage company compares the ratio of liabilities to assets as their metric. For example, 0.28 may be its ideal metric for the debt to income ratio. We talked about, write this down. We talked about how ratio means fraction. We talked about that at the beginning of chapter 1. Samar has $250,000 in assets. Using this metric, what amount of liabilities could he have and still be able to take out a loan? So it says 0.28 is the ideal metric for the ratio of liabilities to assets. And it says that he has $250,000 in assets, and it wants to know what liabilities could he have. So if I read this, it says X divided by 250,000. So in order to get X alone, the opposite would be to multiply by 250,000. And whatever you do to one side of your equation, you must do it to the other. 250,000 times 0.28 is $70,000. Here's another equation model. A teacher compares the ratio of the number of questions answered correctly to the total number of the questions on a test as a metric. For students to earn either an A or a B on the test, the ratio, which again we said means fraction, must be greater than or equal to 0.8. The last test given by the teacher had a total of 40 questions. Using this metric, what is the least number of questions a student can answer correctly and still earn an A or B on the test? So we have 0.80, which is basically saying 80%, which we know that to get an A or B, you have to get above 80%. We don't know how many questions the student answered correctly, so we put an X, and the total was 40 questions on the bottom. So again, X is being divided by 40. So the opposite would be to times both sides by 40, and 40 times 0.80 is 32 questions. Okay, so now we're moving on to the second half of the lesson, which is accuracy. Go ahead and pause here, take these notes. Accuracy refers to how close a measured value comes to the actual or desired value. And obviously, if we want to be more accurate, we need to use smaller numbers or smaller labels. So like centimeters is smaller than inches, that kind of thing. So this one says charges for landscaping for a home are determined by area. Last week, the Robinson family was charged $100 and the Cooper family was charged $125. Which unit of measurement is most likely for these measurements? Acres, hundreds of acres, or thousands of acres? Well, if we're talking about $100, they probably only have 2 acres at their house, or maybe like 1.5 acres. Somebody's not going to charge only $100 to do hundreds or thousands of acres. So acres is the most correct. Patricia's calculator reads 34 with all of those decimals as the circumference of the center circle on a basketball court. Patricia measured the radius of the center circle to be 2.2. Determine where the rounding should occur and give the rounded answer. So just like we've talked about, when a problem gives you a fraction to start, you should give them a fraction answer. Also, if a problem starts with 1 decimal place, that's how many decimal places you should give the answer in. So since she measured the radius to be 2.2, to keep with how accurate she was, we only want to use 1 decimal place. So we're going to use 34 point, and then I look at the 5, and there's a 5 behind it. So I'd want to round up to 6. And again, I want to keep my answer to be accurate like hers. I only want to use 1 decimal place. So the answer should be 34.6. Kent is building a space shuttle. How accurate do you think he needs to be with his measurements? Well, if he's putting someone's life in his hand building a space shuttle, he probably better be pretty accurate. So we're going to go with millimeters. Number 5, we are estimating the length of a practice football field. So if we're estimating a practice field, something that they're not going to actually play games on, and we're just estimating, we don't have to be very accurate. So which unit of measure should we use? 1 foot, because it's the biggest, and we don't have to be very accurate. So we could be off by a foot since we're estimating a practice football field. The height of a door has dimensions given in feet and inches. Which unit of measure is more accurate? Inches, because they are smaller than feet and it wants us to be more accurate. A television has a dimension given in inches and centimeters. Which is more accurate? Centimeters, because they're smaller than inches. Okay, now we get into the money problems. And we have a note here about money. When rounding money, use the first 2 decimal places and drop the rest. So banks don't ever want to round up to the next penny because although it doesn't seem like a lot, they would have to give a penny to every person who had every account, every transaction in their whole bank, and eventually it would end up to being a lot of money. So what we do with money is we just take 2 decimal places and we scribble out the rest. So Jordan should round to 6.66. The other reason Jordan should not give each person $6.67 is if I multiply that by 3 people, that is $20.01. And Jordan only has how much to share? $20. So he also cannot round up because he doesn't have that much money. So he should only give each person $6.66. Mrs. Miller has 14 snack bars to share among 6 students. Mrs. Miller types 14 divided by 6 into her calculator and gets 2.3 repeating. Where should Mrs. Miller round? Well, it depends kind of on this one, how accurate she is with her cutting. 2.3 repeating is 2 1/3. So if she's feeling pretty confident with her cutting, she could maybe cut each bar into a third. That would be okay. Otherwise, if you're not very accurate with cutting, I would say she should just give each person 2 whole snack bars. And there is your homework.